What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to discuss if Liara is actually older or not in the Mass Effect 4 trailer. So, I made a video a few weeks ago, and I talked about are people overthinking the trailer. And, obviously talking about the trailer so far removed from it being out, we can kind of see things, I think, a little bit differently than what we saw them back in December. And, I mentioned in that trailer, part of overthinking it, part of it is the Liara part. There's no doubt about it, right? Is that an element there that people could be looking too much into? And so for this video, I wanted to just look at her, okay? Maybe we'll bring in other things, but just look at her. Is she actually older? Well, in that video I said, and I'll say it again here, one of the most simple things that could be, explained is that it's new technology. Well, before I go too far in, let me make sure I make this very clear early on. I do want this to be known from me. If you guys are new, you've never heard from me before, right? This is the first time you're watching. I'm a fan of many opinions, okay? I want you guys to think for yourself. I want you guys to have your own opinion. I know Mass Effect fans can do both of those things and do both of those things very well, so I don't think it's any problem, but I do just want to make that known that I value your opinion. If you think what I say is garbage and you don't agree and you have your own theory, that's awesome. Maybe not the whole garbage part, but that's awesome, right? So again, though, going back to the very first thing, right? The visual impact of her face. Could that just be new technology? I think the easy answer is yes. Again, none of this stuff is set in stone. It very well could be that she is many, many, many years older. But you look at new technology in general. You're gonna get better just animations, and you're just gonna be able to see things that you never were able to see before. And it's not like we're talking like we're in a hologram and we're literally in Mass Effect, but you look at what they were able to accomplish with the trilogy, and then even Andromeda, and look at what games can do now. Again, I'm not saying like games are like 50 years more advanced now than what like Mass Effect 3 was, but the point is you can see expressions, you can see wrinkles, you can see details on people's faces now that you've never been able to see before. Examples of even going into like Sony first-party games, right? The difference between Uncharted 3 and 4 is enormous. Now, Uncharted's my favorite franchise, it's why I kind of bring it up. Uncharted 3 is a visually amazing game, still to this day, but it's still like the blocky, where it's just literally a face, there's no expression there. I mean, obviously their eyes and stuff can make things so you can tell emotion, but you can't see wrinkles, you can't see details in the character. Fast forward to Uncharted 4, and what do you know? Everything's there. And that was actually done in 2016, okay? So that is what I'm kind of talking about here. I think the difference in just a few years, even from Andromeda to now, or if you want to go back through 1 through 3 to right now, you can do so much more. So, is basically it's the crow's feet, right? The fact that you can see the wrinkles on her face that make people think that maybe she's older. Could that just be a sign of, hey, we were never able to do this kind of stuff before? What would we be able to do with it now? You could do the same thing for like if Garrus, say this is like 2 years after 3 and like Garrus is live. You could do the same thing for Garrus. Like Garrus looks visually cool. The Turians just in general look really cool, but like they're still kind of stiff. They're still kind of almost 2D in their face. It's actually a little odd to say, but imagine the details you could give them right now. Somebody like Tali would, I think, be a little bit more difficult, right? Because under a mask, and I don't know, you'd be able to make the mask look more realistic, things like that. The second thing is that it's a trailer, and this is the last visual representation before we look at the other, factors in the actual trailer. It's a trailer, okay? And the fact of the matter is, a lot of times, trailers are not, obviously they're a little bit of a signal of what you're going to, or they should be a big signal as to what you're going to get in the game. But I mean, come on. Most times, trailers are a level up of what the game is actually going to be. If Assassin's Creed was what the trailer was every year, it would be Game of the Year every single time a new game came out, because they nail, that's a personal side opinion, they nail their trailers, right? So that's another thing. Trailers, even back in the day, even if you go back, trailers, you can do more with trailers than you can do with the actual game. So that's something else. And another thing, actually, just to kind of throw in too, is it's interesting, and this is a little bit of a different example than some, because if the game is still years away, they could actually get better. Like, yeah, it may not still look exactly like the trailer, but it may actually be very, very close. You know what I mean? Because they may be able to achieve that. Imagine what games can look like and do in even 2 years from now. I mean, once you get a better understanding of the next-gen consoles and Unreal Engine 5, you know, whatever they're using, imagine what it could be, right? So that's the second thing. A trailer, you're just going to look better than you would in the game anyway. Okay, then there's the other factors, and this is maybe what people actually care about. I think, honestly, the first two things, though, again, in terms of not overthinking it. If you want to think about it hard, go ahead. Again, it's a figure of speech, right? But if we're not overthinking things, could very well just be you can see details now that you couldn't 10 years ago. That could be the very simple explanation. But going further into it goes into the details of the trailer and goes into the details of the past games. I want to bring in Arya real fast because this is one that a lot of people, when I made the last video, they talked about it. I've seen it on Reddit as a point as well. Arya is over 1,000 years old in Mass Effect, as you're seeing her throughout these games, and there's not a single sign of age on this character, okay? Compared to Liara, who is around 100, and I think she's like 109, right? Maybe at the time of Mass Effect 3, but let's just say 100 just to be nice. You have somebody at 1,000 plus, but let's say 1,000 versus 100, and they look exactly the same. Again, though, that's the limitations of the hardware and what they were and also maybe even limitations of what they wanted to do. Like, are you going to spend months making Arya look older than Liara as a small detail in the game? Do you have that kind of time to kind of use on that? Probably not, right? But again, that's just something to throw in. This is a character that's 1,000. She doesn't really have anything. We don't really know if when they are 1,000, if they're 1,100, if they're 12, we don't really know how generally old they're going to look. You even look, I would even say you look at like Rex and you look at all of them, there is definitely an indication that some that are older look older than others, but it's not the biggest thing in the world. So that's something to throw in as well. Like if they, again, that could just be limitations of the past console, and maybe if they could do it now, would a 1,000-year-old Asari look older than a 100-year-old Asari? Yes, probably, right? But what does that oldness look like? Is it like, again, like the crow's feet, or is that simply because you can now do that? Other things to consider is what's going on around the trailer. Now, this goes into the thoughts of, is Shepard going to be in the game? What year are we talking about? I think a lot of people, and I saw this over in different, this is brought up on YouTube, this is brought up on Reddit. One of the main reasons people do think, Liara is much older is because of the Andromeda thing, right? And the fact that, well, if the game is going to connect both the Milky Way with Mass Effect 1 through 3 and then Andromeda, it needs, I guess that kind of thinking would be, well, it needs to be set in Andromeda, which is 600 years later. So, Liara would be old. She'd be like 700 plus years old, so she would look drastically older. But the thing is, and again, going back to that, not overthinking it, who said it needs to be during the events of the game? They sent the ships to Andromeda in between 2 and 3. So who's to say that it's that they don't just mention it? I get that, yeah, it could be a sequel, or maybe you can play in both galaxies. Maybe there's actually 2 characters that you can play. Like, we don't know. We do not know. So, and maybe that's too far to jump at. But yet again, it could be too far to jump that the game is automatically now set 600 years after Mass Effect, right? Considering the only things that connect Andromeda with that trailer is Godspeed, right? And which is the Tempest, and then the seeing Andromeda in the background. Those are the only 2 things that actually like link it, and the fact that they said it'll basically connect the 2, right? But that again doesn't mean it's 600 years in the future. Another thing is, why in God's name are the Reapers still around in the way that they are? Why, even they showed even like the concept art of the like broken Mass Effect relay. Like, why are these things still destroyed and scattered 600 years later? If again, we're gonna go based off the destroy ending. I think that is the one that they chose. And I would say like the secret ending, right? If you had the perfect ending, why, well, there's a couple things actually in terms of age, which we also talked about in the last video. Why are the Reapers still there? Like, wouldn't they be rusted in 600 years? That's a small detail, but you know what? If we're gonna point out, like age marks on Liara's face, why wouldn't we point out rust on a Reaper shell? Now, we don't necessarily get to see it because it's kind of covered in snow, but like wouldn't something be slightly different if we're talking 600 years after, right? That's something to kind of point out. And then also, I guess in terms of rusting and decaying, when she picks up the N7 thing, why is that in perfect condition? Did the snow did it like crystallize it where it's just not gonna age whatsoever? Again, small detail, but you think they would pay attention to something like that, right? Where if it's 600 years in the future, it should fall apart. At that rate. So you have that, and then I guess the final thing I want to say, again, mentioned in my, like, a lot of these things, I'm going more in depth to what I said in the last video. I'll leave that last video at the end of this one. She smiles, right, when she picks up the N7 thing. And obviously, that's very ambiguous because she could be reminiscing about Shepard. She could be looking for Shepard. You know what I mean? It could be, like, there's a couple different options, and you can't really say which one is definitive right now. Obviously, we have a long time to wait for it. But some people brought up a good point, like, well, how did she, well, like, it seems like the trailer is designed where she kind of knows where she's going. Do you know what I mean? Where she's like, she didn't just stumble upon, now, okay, maybe she did. But like the way the trailer is framed, it's almost like she knew that this would be a planet or this would be the right area to look for something like this. And then when she finds it, she smiles. I read that as like, yes, I'm on the right path. You know, like I know where I'm going. Yet again, though, we don't know, again, how the trailer's framed in the way that it could be like a setup. Like when we play the game, if we do play as Shepard, let's say, the trailer may not even make its way into the game, is basically what I'm saying. It could be a setup. It could be just, again, like a tease into what the game is actually going to be. But, like, it may not be a game of finding Shepard. You just automatically play as him, but the trailer is just to kind of get you hyped up. They're like, oh, this is how it happened. Liara was looking for him, so on and so on, right? Again, there's a lot of questions. Again, I'll go back to Uncharted, one of my favorite game. Uncharted 4, one of the first trailers we ever saw to that game where Nate wakes up on, like, the water, and he's having that background discussion with Sully in his head about, the one last time. That was never in the game. But that was just to signal kind of the atmosphere of what the game was going to be. Could be the same thing here, right? Kind of setting it up, but not actually, like that cutscene or that scene in general may not make its way into the game, right? So that's another thing. Like, the only way to make it work if it's 600 years in the future is she found it and she's, like, reminiscing. She's like, oh, what a great time I had with Shepard. But, like, why are the Reapers like that? Why is that N7 earpiece basically? It's like the helmet piece, but that goes around his ear. Why is that in perfect condition? How'd you know to go there? Why would you go there 600 years later and not like right after the events of 3? You know, like a lot of questions kind of start to rise up. And again, maybe you're not supposed to think about it that hard, but that's maybe the point. Okay, so let me know in the comments below, guys. Do you think Liara is massively older in this game? Do you think she's the same age? Do you think it's right after Mass Effect 3? Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. I've covered Mass Effect quite a bit. I love talking about it. I'm going to be continuing, just constantly. And then once we get new info, I'll absolutely be covering it on the channel, okay? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.